Africa, and welcome to this episode here on Click Africa. I'm Josie Mahachi, and today I'm proud to be sitting next to one of the youth ambassadors, youth African ambassadors. I'm talking of Mr. Frank Buyanga. How are you, Frank?
Very well.
How are you doing? You look so low.
Oh.
Or maybe it's just my thoughts.
Definitely you're not low.
Okay.
Yeah.
Frank, who is Frank Buyanga? If someone is to hear of Frank Buyanga, what do you think comes first to their minds?
I'm Frank Buyanga. That's me. I'm sitting here. I'm sitting next to you.
Are you Zimbabwean or you British?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm British by birth. I'm Zimbabwean by descent. Yeah.
All right. There's been a lot of allegations against you. A lot, Frank. I know you know everything. But you've been doing a lot of things in Zimbabwe, a lot of business in Zimbabwe. You've got a lot of assets in Zimbabwe. You've invested a lot in Zimbabwe and obviously in the rest of the world. But my first question before we touch on everything else, are you a loan shark?
Am I a loan shark? Simple question requires a simple answer. But then when you speak of me being a loan shark, I don't see any correlation, because a loan shark is supposed to be a person that torments people to collect their money, or a person that uses blackmail or some other unscrupulous ways of collecting their money, amongst a cocktail of charging high interest rates, or what they would call useless interest rates. So I think the definition of a loan shark is by no means correlated to the way I've conducted my business, or by the ways in which my establishments conduct their businesses.
How does it feel waking up every day and knowing that you're wanted by the police, like everything that is put on the internet?
Well, you know, I don't pay attention to any of that. I mean, that's all, you know, it's the rhetoric and people, you know, having fun doing what they're doing. I pay no attention to that whatsoever.
What are you doing to regularize the situation in Zimbabwe?
What am I doing to regularize my situation in Zimbabwe? Well, it depends what situation. I've got so many situations.
There's been allegations against you in Zimbabwe that you've been taking property from people.
I've been taking property from people.
You took properties from people.
There's no way you can say that I have taken property from anyone. Any transaction I've ever done in the past has been a contractual agreement between me and the other party, whether that is a person or a corporation. Everything's been done above board.
Looking at all these videos we've got, what made you record each and every transaction that you're having in Zimbabwe? Did you know things would turn like this someday, or it's just a normal procedure?
No, the reason I record all my transactions, and I have done so in the past, is because I have had instances, not only in Zimbabwe, but most recently in Zimbabwe, where I bought an asset, and I've had people walking into my office and saying that that they want their asset back and that I didn't pay them for it. And you know, I'd obviously get locked up for a couple of days, you know, and I'd then be forced into submission, because I would say, if you do not give this person back their asset, and this is the police I'm talking about, then we will not give you any liberty. So I thought, wait a minute, you know, these people come, they sell their assets to me, you know, free willing, obviously, and then the next thing is they bring the police over to say, we've never dealt with Frank. And obviously, you can only imagine, you know, with a person like me and with a person that seems, you know, much older at the time, that the police would just take the view that I'm a crook, and life becomes very uncomfortable. So that's why I record, and I've recorded all these transactions.
Looking at the documents that we have,
yes,
looking at all the contracts that we have,
yes,
it looks like you were actually buying properties from the people.
Yes.
But did you let them know? Did you let them understand this is what you're doing?
Yeah, but look, you've got to go back to the foundation of everything. You see, Hamilton has Hamilton Finance, which is a regulated financial provider. They're a microfinance company, and they lend money out. Then you've got Hamilton Property Holdings. Property Holdings is a property buying company. and in instances would have entered into an arrangement or an agreement to sell their property back to the individual that sold them the property, to deal with the liquidity issues at the time. And you must remember that at the time I initiated Hamilton Finance, you need to remember that it was at a time where the country just shifted from the US dollar into from the Zim dollar into the US dollar. No one had any money. The banks had no money. You know, sort of the sanctioned country. You know, the sanctions against the country. There was no funding coming from anywhere. So the only funding that was there was coming from me. And obviously at the time, stupidly, I sort of just went in there and started creating problems for myself because I was assisting people.
Legally?
Legally, yes. By all means, legally. Everything was done legally and above board. I mean, everything's always been legal. And even at this stage, I don't have any qualms whatsoever with any of those complainants. Because they're just people that are ignorant from the truth. They're people that have joined up and conspired to cook up this thing against me. But I understand their position because they're in a system that's very difficult to operate in. I mean, look, these are normal civilians who've been living in their houses or who have had their assets. And all of a sudden, they're being told that this has to go. And because of the breakdown in the rule of law in previous years, everyone's taking the law into their own hands. And it's like, okay, no, we're going to go after this guy. How do we go after him? We badmouth him, we do this, we do the other. That's what happened. But then you have to look at it. You've got to look at those people. And you have to study them. And you've got to see the way in which they operate. They're desperate people. They're in a desperate situation. The whole system has broken down.
But how do 45 people from different families all come together and turn around against you?
45 people. I've dealt with over 2,000 people.
Yeah, but
we've extended funding up to date to more than maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people in different facets. We've dealt with maybe 10,000 people within my structures.
But obviously some of them have paid you back.
No, I mean, forget about people paying me back. I mean, people always pay back in terms of different companies and different arrangements. But when you're talking about the 45 complainants, are people that have just propped up their affidavits against me. And they're using, elements in the system and state organs to try and create something out of it. But nothing's going to come out of it.
Why were you extending funding to government ministers?
There's nothing wrong with extending funding to a government minister. Obviously, we all know that in Zimbabwe, at the time I was extending funds, no one else, even the banks didn't have any money. So none of these people had anywhere to run. They could only run to me.
So being ministers, have they paid you back?
Well, I mean, a lot of people haven't paid me back. But at the end of the day, a minister is just a civil servant. A minister is a minister. What's so special about a minister?
We went to Zimbabwe to interview some of your clients.
When I approached them, they gave me their requirements, and I managed to fulfill them. And in 48 hours, my application was processed and I was given the funds. So from there, basically, I've seen that kind of financing being quite viable for our business, because basically, my business now is just to go out, get some orders, and I'm guaranteed that at least I've got somewhere where at least I can get the financing. And since now we have been in business, the processing period basically reduced from about 48 hours to about 24 hours. Yeah, so it's like now if I go there, put in my application, show them all my papers, and then someday I can get the funds, and then I get my work done.
I'm a financial and management consultant, which means that my everyday work involves matching the need for finance and the availability for finance. And at the time I met with Hamilton Finance, I had quite a few clients who wanted money. And there was generally no money on the money market, the normal money market, the banks and so on. You couldn't find money in the banks. So the coming in on Hamilton Finance was quite a relief, because then I could refer my clients to Hamilton Finance. And that's exactly what I did. And I noticed that their terms were very favorable.
You find that in the country, there was this shift from our local currency to US dollars. So you find that in the mainstream banking sector, people couldn't access facilities for their small scale businesses also. Then people were like in a quandary position. All right, for ourselves, we like surrender our vehicles, and we do it, some agreements, which we all sign. They remain with a copy, I get a copy, and the vehicle is basically parked at a safe place where it will be picked up after you would have paid all your money. So basically, for ourselves, we like surrender our vehicles for the loans that we'll be applying for.
But Hamilton Finance were able to disburse whatever you would have asked for, provided you had met all their conditions within 48 hours. The next attraction was the flexibility in terms of the security that they required. Apart from what is normally required by most financial institutions, which is real estate, houses and so on, you could access money from Hamilton Finance through other collateral items like motor vehicles, plasma televisions, computers and so on.
Then I took about 4 months to pay. After finishing the payment, I was given back my book and my vehicle.
Would have been eased a little from the normal real estate to things that people have got very easy access to, like motor vehicles, which was another attraction. And so I referred quite a few people here to get finance.
As you know, here in Zimbabwe, we went through a very bad patch in 2007, 2008, where there was a huge shortage of money on the market, and people could not really move forward. All the inflows which used to come into the country had almost dried up. And this new capital injection, or I must say some financial engineering, which came up with, where you would provide money based on soft loans and medium-term loans and long-term loans to free individuals, households, businesses which needed to recapitalize and all that, was really something which came in to plug in a gap which existed at that time. Banks did not have money to give to people, and the only sources of finance which was available to most people to improve on their working capital requirements was through macro lending. So he ventured into this particular business, and it scored quite a number of successes. Very, very popular with a lot of people. And one thing which I was very thrilled about is that it was properly licensed by the regulators. So it was not like it was operating from a boot of a car. There are people who did benefit, and perhaps in their desire to do business, they failed on various projects, and they failed, or their challenges in terms of repaying the money, and ended up finding excuses in terms of paying back those monies. Whereas what I would have thought is people who are accountable with some form of integrity, the best thing would have been to go back to the drawing board and renegotiate the various loans, have them rescheduled. I think Frank is the kind of person who would have allowed a process where they would have given even more period to pay, to make those payments without creating any form of antagonism. But it's just unfortunate that some people who were really greedy thought the best way to move this agenda was to push him out of that